I'm making this video because I get a lot of accusations and assumptions that I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to etymology and language. So I'm going to make this video and show you exactly just how much better I know language than you ever thought of. I get a lot of people writing to me saying,
Truthduracy, you must be a disinfo agent or working for the Freemasons or whatever. Because anybody with a brain knows that when you combine English words with Latin and German and Hebrew or whatever, is that it's ridiculous because you can't do it. They're different languages. So why on earth are you doing this? You're lying to the people.
and what I'm here to tell you folks is that you're wrong. You just don't understand the wisdom that I'm sharing with you. First, let me start out by giving you some basic logic, which comes from the log of the sacred tree. You see, language, or the language, is a form of languages and communication that is like one big family, or one big family tree, which is exactly like your family tree, which is known as genealogy, which tells us what country you come from, which is why the Bible has the story of creation, which of course is known as the Genesis, or the gene of Isis, which is talking about the mother tree, or the origin, the beginning, the creation, or the crescent of the horns of the bull cow of the moon, which is the Cretan bull, or the creator, the Taurus bull. And you see, this is why a genius has originality and creativity. It's really funny when people call me a lunatic or a crazy guy because I do not follow the rest of the beehive. Therefore, I do not behave. So I don't follow the flock or follow the herd. So people naturally will tease me and laugh. But you can laugh and tease all you want to. You see, you don't realize that you're actually giving me a compliment by calling me a crazy guy, because all of the geniuses of this world have always been called crazy. And these geniuses include the creative minds of Vincent van Gogh, William Shakespeare, as well as Leonardo da Vinci. And you see, all of the world's greatest philosophers and psychologists and physicists, etc., have always had the presence of mind to think outside of the box. So when the light goes on in a person's head and they come up with a bright idea, the public's reaction, or the moral reaction, is going to be one of negativity. They're going to tease and put you down because you are thinking with originality. So wisdom has always come from the great minds of those who are called crazy, exactly like Pythagoras or Socrates, for example. Just like the crazy Plato and the crazy Aristotle. And throughout history, these great minds have been condemned, put in prison, put on trial for heresy and blasphemy, like Bruno, and even executed. And to think that they want to burn and torture these people simply for voicing their opinion and thinking. Which brings me to Agrippa, which is a great philosopher who had a great saying that I want to share with you. Nothing is concealed from the wise and the sensible, while the unbelieving and unworthy cannot learn the secrets. You see, this is why I always say that truth is a sin in a world of lies, or that truth to the fool is lies to the wise. I mean, let's take a look at one of the greatest minds that ever lived, Galileo. I mean, he was a philosopher, a physicist, a mathematician, an astronomer. I mean, they actually put him on trial and were going to condemn him to death simply for being wise. And they teased him, obviously, and they put him down. But look who's laughing to this very day. Not the people who teased, but Galileo. He was the one that was correct, not the fools who didn't understand. So you see, throughout history, the crazy guy is actually the person who knows exactly what they're talking about, while the rest of the blind sheep simply cannot grasp that person's wisdom. You see, this is why they always make geniuses appear to be crazy and a psycho, because they change their appearance to look crazy so that they will fit the image and perception of geniuses, which is a crazy person, one who thinks out of the box. You see, they're making Albert Einstein look all crazy so that he will match the ancient image of the old crazy wise man. So now you'll notice when you watch the History Channel and the philosopher is speaking, like Giorgio with his hair looking all crazy to fit the image of a philosopher or a wise one who studies wisdom. So now you know why Jimmy Neutron, the boy genius's hair is sticking up. And so, like I said before, if you're watching your Hollywood movies, you would understand why they portray the individual of the crazy guy as the one that actually knows what's really going on, but everybody else thinks he's crazy. Exactly like Jim Carrey in 23. Who do they use? The crazy Jim Carrey. And exactly like the movie 2012, where the crazy conspiracy theorist is the one that actually knows the truth, but everybody else treats him like shit and thinks he's crazy. Just like in the movie Gremlins, where the wise old Chinese man is the man with the left dark eye and the right bright eye, exactly like Odin, the wise old master. Or like this crazy guy who also knows all about the gremlins, but they won't believe him. Exactly like Pat Morita in The Karate Kid, where he played the old crazy Grand Master. And David Carradine in Kung Fu had his wise old blind crazy master who spoke the wisdom. And this is exactly where we get our mentor, one who mentors you, which is the Min of the Moon and the Taurus Bull, which is the Minotaur, the one that helps mankind. Like in the movie Narnia, the bull or the ox or the Minotaur is the one that helps the humans. Just like the great philosophical joke of the old bull and the young bull, where the young bull says to the old bull, "Let's run down the hill and mate with one of those cows." And the old bull goes to the young bull, "You go ahead and run down fast and mate with one of them. I'm gonna walk down slowly and mate with them all." And of course, the sacred bull or cow creates the magic mushroom, which gave enlightenment to mankind, which is why it's called the bulb, which is the bulb of the magic mushroom, the enlightenment. You see, the wise old owl is the symbol of wisdom because he sits on the log of logic, which comes from the tree. And this is why when we try to find the meaning of words, which is etymology, it means getting to the roots of the tree, which is known as the source, the base, the origin, the foundation, the beginning of. And this is exactly why the word etymology means true meaning. And you see, our very word truth actually comes from the old crazy guy, which is the druid, which is the drew wood, the tree, the sacred tree of wisdom, which comes from the elder of the old crazy guy. So you see, the tree is the drew wood, which is the truth, which is exactly why we knock on wood. So you see, the sacred tree is the tree of knowledge and the tree of wisdom. The reason why the magic mushroom is actually a tree. The tree is the sacred tree of wisdom and knowledge, like the apple tree, which is the Amanita muscaria, the tree or the mushroom of enlightenment and wisdom, the cap of knowledge. And the sacred dome of the mushroom or the tree is where we get our word wisdom, the wise dome. The sacred wisdom of the wise dome or the tree, which is the Drew wood, the wise one. And the ancient shamans were just like the druids. They were the high priests because they actually took the magic mushroom and gained wisdom of the wise dome. This is why these ancient shamans were known as the old crazy ones. And actually, the Wicca and the witch also mean the wise one, which comes from the sacred tree of the ancient druid. So based upon the ancient druid, you see why the wise one or the witch is the old crazy woman. And this is why the old crazy witch holds the apple in her hand and tempting you to take a bite of wisdom. So you see why the Bible has the tree and the sacred garden. It is the sacred garden of the tree of life, the tree of knowledge and wisdom, which gives life. And the sacred tree of life gives life to our languages, which is why language, like I said before, is a giant tree. And this is exactly why you'll find that languages have stems and root meanings. And remember that we use paper to communicate our languages, which comes from the sacred tree. And the human body has bisymmetry, exactly like our brains, the two hemispheres of our brain. And a tree is also bisymmetrical, the two halves, or the pair of L's, the parallel, the double tree, which is why the tree is bisymmetry, the two halves. So you see, this is known as symmetry, or the same tree. So when you get a bright idea and the light goes on in your head, what you want to do with your right side of your brain is write down what you're thinking. So you see, we write down and log our thoughts onto the paper, which is part of a book. And yes, the word book comes from the sacred tree. And of course, the word paper comes from the papyrus plant tree. You see, the ancient story of the sex magic and the wisdom of the apple, the Adam and the Eve, and the tree or the log is still in use to this very day. Think about it. Apple computers started, and what did they start with? The 101. The ones and the zeros, the males and the females. And by the way, did you know that Steve Jobs, God rest his soul, the one that started Apple or the Apple, he began it on April 1st, 1976, which of course, if you don't know already, is Fool's Day. April begins the month of the Fool. And of course, he started it on the night of the black moon of death. So you see, language is a system of communication, which is why we go to our computers to do what? To communicate. And in order to start the communication, we must first push the power button, just like on a remote, in order to watch TV and receive the communication. And the communication is created through the sex magic, which is the symbol of the power symbol, the symbol of sex. So to create the power, we must first push in the button. So you see, we used to use the phallic pen or the wooden staff of the pencil to write on the paper and log it down. And nowadays, we logically communicate by logging on with our computers. Like I said, language is the system of communication, which is why the very word communicate means to come and unify or come together. So communication is the uniting as one, or the sex magic. And yes, the Old English come in is the new Middle English come in. The word computer comes from the word compute, to compare, produce, and get a result, which only a woman who is pregnant can give the result because she holds the baby, the information. And a computer is considered female like many objects and vehicles. You see, we say she's a beauty when we're talking about a new car or a new boat or something. You see, we put the male fuel inside of the female once we remove the lid or the lips. And this is exactly how the V engine works, with the pistons going up and down. And the boat is a vehicle or a vessel that can carry objects like a pregnant woman. So you see, a computer is considered female, a she, which is exactly why a computer has a motherboard, which of course is known as the logic board. Again, we have the log of the tree and the board of the wooden tree. And the logic board means the circuitry, which is the circ of El, the female goddess, as in a church, which is exactly the same thing, the same meaning. You are entering the sacred house of the goddess. And along with the circle of the goddess, we have the male phallic pole, which is why every church will also have a steeple. And the logic board is also known as the analog board, the circuitry of the goddess of An, the cow bull goddess, or Anu. So you see, a computer means to compute her. The reason why is that come does mean come, as in coming, the sexual fertility orgasm, as well as combining it with the word pute. And a pute is a slutty, nasty, filthy whore, a hoe, a woman who gives herself. So she's a slut. She's a nasty, filthy prostitute, a pute, or a puta. So now you understand why computers are associated with porn. So in order to understand the true essence of language and the history of communication, we must first go back into ancient times, to our ancient ancestors. And actually, we're going to go back even further than, let's say, Sumeria or ancient Mesopotamia. We're going to go back to the ancient prehistory, the ancient Stone Age. And in fact, we're going to go back even further than that. We're going to go back to the very beginning of time, when creatures started to crawl on the earth. And in fact, we are going to take it back even further than this, way back to the very beginning of time, in the primordial soup of the ocean. All of the living creatures that lived in the primordial soup, to this very day, there's something that they all have in common, which is language and communication. You see, the very fundamental essence of language and communication is based 100% upon sex.